chapters under the federal Constitution interpreting what it means, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to a speedy trial, a search and seizure, and so on. But these 17 rights are new in Montana, and so what we are seeing is a contemporaneous determination of what those rights mean. And it's going to change as new cases are brought by plaintiffs seeking the protection of this Bill of Rights. So with that, I would like to ask Betsy to talk a little bit about some of the cases that have been brought under this Section 4 that we have just talked about. And if it's okay with you all, I think it would be good if we just stay in our seats and maybe we'll save a little time. Sound good? Okay. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Mae Nan, and thank you very much for having me on this panel. I'm very honored to be on this panel and feel a little out of place, I have to say. But I really appreciate it. I really appreciated my role with the ACLU of Montana, and I certainly appreciated and felt I had a great privilege teaching Montana constitutional law for the last 8 years at the University of Montana Law School. And there's no doubt that the equal rights provision in the Montana Constitution is a remarkable provision. And why, we've talked here, why is it necessary to have a state constitution? Well, we know it's to organize a state government. But one of the roles that the state constitution has, and one of the great benefits it gives us, is that it can actually give us broader protections than what we have under the U.S. Constitution. The United States Constitution is, in fact, the baseline of our rights. And it's with, when the Montana Supreme Court looks at the Montana Constitution and looks at state actors, it can say, wait a minute, I see special provisions in the state constitution that in fact give Montana citizens broader rights than those granted under the U.S. Constitution. It's a really important concept. And in that way, it's very interesting that these new provisions, especially the right to human dignity, which Mae Nan referenced, and the right of privacy, which Wade referenced, these provisions being new and are dynamic provisions. They're being construed all the time. It makes the Montana Constitution a living document. But what's also important is that these provisions are used as building blocks with respect to the other provisions in the Constitution. What do I mean by building blocks? Well, the right of human dignity is used to enhance the protections that we have in the Constitution with respect to equal protection, for example. We'll talk about equal protection. The right of privacy is used to enhance the protection against reasonable searches and seizures. The right of human dignity has been used to enhance the protection against cruel and unusual punishment. So our Bill of Rights operates in such a way to grant broader protections under the state constitution than the federal constitution. And the Equal Protection Clause is no different. The right of human dignity in Montana has been used in various contexts. And in fact, we just talked about this last week. We had a very good discussion. One of the hallmark cases involving the right of human dignity was the Baxter case, the right to physician-assisted suicide. And the court itself, the majority of the court, did not talk about the right of human dignity with respect to physician-assisted suicide. But Justice Nelson wrote an incredibly moving and articulate concurrence. And if I can throw the ball back to Justice Nelson to talk about what that means just a little bit, and we can talk about equal protection rights. I'd like to focus on that.
Okay. Betsy indicated, and it's been indicated, I think, by Wade and by Attorney General Bullock, that a lot of, can you hear me? I'm sorry. That a lot of our rights are used to enhance each other, and that's correct. That's true. A A lot of what we do on the Supreme Court in deciding cases is balancing rights. The right to know against the right of privacy, the right to clean, healthful environment against the implicit right to work, to use our state's resources and things like that. What I'm going to say about the right of dignity now is my view. I want to be very honest with you. It has not been accepted by any decision of the Supreme Court. Some of our judges, justices have disagreed with this view. I know that there's a lot of professional disagreement in academic circles about this view, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, and you can decide for yourself.
Can you pull his mic up closer?
Let me just take this thing out. My wife is constantly giving me grief about the way I'll just that's okay.
You can pull it down, Ted.
That's okay.
My chair is on his cord.
There's the problem. Okay, is that better? In my view, and I articulated this idea in the Baxter case and the concurrence that I wrote to that case. In my view, the right of dignity, the inviolable right of human dignity, is a standalone right in Montana's Constitution. In my view, that means simply that it does not have to be enhanced to work. It is the one and only one right in Montana's Constitution that is inviolable. And when we say that a right is inviolable in the law, that means that it can't be violated. It cannot be taken away. In my opinion, it is the one absolute right in Montana's Constitution. Let me flesh that out a little bit. I believe that when a person is born, they are born with the right of dignity. And whatever happens to them during their life, wherever they go, whatever their situation is, they never lose that right. It can't be taken away from them. People can be arrested and imprisoned when they commit offenses, but we still have to treat our prisoners with the right of human dignity that they deserve as human beings. I think it's an extremely important right because you can see what happens around the world in other countries, and unfortunately in this country in the last few years, when the right of human dignity is ignored. People are tortured. They're abused in prison. They're waterboarded. Those kinds of activities, in my opinion, violate the right of human dignity. Even the most horrendously unpopular terrorist in the world is still a human being. They still have the right of human dignity. They can be punished for their crimes, most certainly. They can be arrested, they can be imprisoned, but they never lose that right of human dignity. So I think that the right of human dignity is a standalone right that cannot be taken away, that has to be respected. And it's hard to define what dignity is. I've offered some suggestions in my concurrence as to how it can be violated. But I think quintessentially, the right of human dignity involves the sense of worth, the sense of self-esteem that each person has and is entitled to have. And when we do things in our society to take that away, when we abuse prisoners, when students are bullied in school, when we refuse people who are dying of an incurable illness the last ability to deal with their own destiny. I said in this concurrence, and it's true, there is no such right to die. Everybody's going to die. It's the destiny of every living thing in this world is to die. and at least in my view, and I said this in Baxter, the ability to be in control of your own death as you were in control of your own life is a very integral component of the right of human dignity. Dignity, I think, is a natural right. It flows from an inner source. It's the worth that every person has as a human being. And I'm not going to ramble on here, Betsy, but that's kind of the essence. I mean, I wrote pages and pages in the Baxter decision, and you're certainly welcome to read that if you want.
Well, with that right of human dignity, even if it isn't a standalone right, we know it's at least a right that makes the other rights in the Montana Constitution more important. It adds to them. It gives them value. It makes it so that the right to equal protection in Montana is broader than, it's not just the language of the Equal Protection Clause, it's broader than that in the U.S. Constitution. It makes the right of privacy in the Montana Constitution, it's enhanced. It makes an express right of privacy even more important. It brings to our right of privacy in Montana an autonomy component. And what do I mean by an autonomy component to the right of privacy? I mean a right of self-determination, which is within the right of human dignity. And it's also a right to be left alone, but it's also a right to bodily integrity. And it goes with like that. In the equal protection arena, this right of human dignity has been used to, for example, in a case that was argued in front of the Montana Supreme Court last Friday, 6 same-sex couples are seeking legal relationship recognition in Montana. And they're seeking that in a suit brought by the ACLU on behalf of these 6 couples to have legal recognition of their relationship so that they are afforded the same benefits and protections as married couples. They're seeking a domestic partnership status under the Equal Protection Clause, not the right to marry. Not the right to marry. So the right to marry is taken off the table. We're not challenging that. What we are saying is that, state of Montana, if you give opposite sex, long-term committed couples a series of benefits and protections, there's no rational basis for you not to give those same benefits and protections to same-sex couples. In the beginning of an equal protection analysis, the first thing you look at is whether you have a group of people who are similarly situated and who are then being treated differently. What we're saying here is that the group of people who are similarly situated are long-term committed couples. And the Montana Constitution, which prohibits treating that similarly situated group, people in that group differently. What we're saying is the Montana constitutional provision on equal protection affords our plaintiffs the protection of the laws on the same basis as heterosexual couples. Now, isn't that fascinating? That this provision is being used when was it envisioned by the delegates that at the time in 1972, what we just had Stonewall. Gay rights were a new thing.